Okay, we've gone through those steps, got our materials and our tools ready. What's the next step?
Well, for a successful wrap, it better be squeaky clean.
Okay, everyone, to make sure that we get the best possible adhesion, wash the vehicle thoroughly. If it's dirty, the vinyl will not stick to the surface. Now the Porsche has already been washed, and now the APE crew inspects the vehicle as they go over the entire car and hermetically clean all the surfaces that will come in contact with the graphics. In addition, we will always pay careful attention to the paint. Paint that is not fully cured can pull up from the vehicle during application, as well as it can outgas over time, which can cause the vinyl to lift. Either scenario can be a problem. Generally speaking though, most paints are cured after about 90 days. But if in doubt, check with the vehicle manufacturer and/or a paint shop to be absolutely sure. In addition to that, any surface that may be old, oxidized, or like chalky paint will have a difficulty accepting vinyl as well. Areas that attract heavy dirt and fumes, such as rocker panels and the back of this car near the exhaust, need to be degreased with a solvent. You need to go over the entire install surface with alcohol to make sure that there is no oily residue from other solvents that may be left behind. Oh yeah, one more thing. Once your vehicle is clean, make sure it has time to completely dry and get to room temperature before beginning your install. The ideal temperature for an install should be between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, now we got a clean vehicle. Are we ready to wrap that Porsche now?
We're ready. Let's get with it.
This is where you'll use the masking tape to pin the graphic in place. You'll need to unroll the graphic and place it on the vehicle. Now the guys will check the graphic for alignment. Utilize horizontal body moldings like door tops and bottoms to get that alignment. Note, the floor is not a good surface to use for alignment. The vehicle's body has contours and beauty lines that are not level to the floor. Once positioned, you'll need a grease or stabilo pencil and a tape measure. Use these tools to perfect the placement of the graphic. Remember, do not always rely on just measurement alone. Stand back and get an overall view and the look of the graphic and its placement on the car. Here we have to contend with a mirror protruding, which complicates the positioning of the graphic. Here the guys have relief cut that area so the graphic will not bunch up and will lay flat during the positioning and the install. Make certain that you know where to cut and how so you do not cut into the coverage area. Here's a couple specialty items to cover. In the case of the Porsche, for this video we thought we'd show you what to do when the graphic is not pre-cut for a door handle. This taping of the door handle will help ensure when we cut the graphic away from this location, we do not cut the paint during the process. Now this takes practice and should only be attempted after you've proven success to yourself over and over again on sample panels. All right, here we go. It's time to start removing a portion of the backing. We have elected to remove just part of the backing to enable us to work with just the rear of the graphic alone and not having to deal with the initial tack of the entire piece. Now, when cutting, be very careful not to cut the graphic when trimming the backing away. With half the backing removed, tack the graphic back onto the car. Now you may have to position again and again, making sure that the graphic is hitting all the marks that you've made. Once the rear is in the proper position, repeat those same steps for the front of the graphic. Notice Rob is holding light tension on the media while Justin applies the squeegee to set the position of the graphic. On a graphic like this, always work from the center of the graphic out and move in either a vertical and/or horizontal direction in overlapping strokes. Maintain the angle of the tool in conjunction to the surface at all times to ensure that you move all the air out from under the graphic. You should be leaving a smooth, conformed surface. Now, repositioning may be needed as peaks and valleys can arise during application. When squeegeeing, the material needs to be taut throughout the entire squeegee process, but not so much to stretch the material. Note the use of pre-mask for this area where the graphic has been contour cut. Areas like this are susceptible to tearing when repositioning the graphic. We use a clear, pliable pre-mask for protection in these cases. When repositioning, it may be necessary to relief cut this area that is void of graphic to enable us to work with the contour of the vehicle. Note, do not cut all the way to the intersection you're trying to protect. Justin is protecting the applied intersection where the pre-mask was removed, while Robbie positions the graphic for the fender over and over again to maintain the arc of the graphic, as well as hitting his location at the headlight. You are seeing one of the attributes of the media. It can be worked over and over again. There are many ways to take care of bubbles, and here are examples. First, as you can see, Rob has pulled the material up, releasing the area, and will re-squeegee the area down. Second, in many instances, small bubbles require just light pressure of your finger to move the air out. Back to the door handle. We have pre-taped it for cutting. Let's watch how the installer uses his finger to define the handle through the graphic, marking the area to be cut and then cutting the handle area free. As noted on the screen, you will see that the graphic is anchored and in its final position forward of the door handle. This will ensure that the graphic will fall back into place after repositioning, as well as when removing the tape from behind the graphic. Here the installer is pulling the material back for repositioning and will squeegee the graphic to lay down in its final position. Now, from this point, they will install the balance of the side graphic and actually complete this side. When wrinkling occurs, softening the material with a heat gun or torch may be required to make that material more pliable, as well as when distortion is present from stretching. Patience in repositioning is required when working the wrinkles from the material. Okay, the side has been installed, and now Robbie will finalize the cutting of the door handle. He will now lift the graphic from the area and remove the tape. And finally, he will reapply the graphic into its final position. Now it's time to use the knife. Note the proper length of blade. It's short, so when Robbie relieves the fender graphic from the hood and in other small areas like doors, hatches, wheel wells, he does not cut the car's paint. Robbie is actually using the negative area of the seam as a guide to frame the blade holder, ensuring the blade does not come in contact with the paint. Some areas, like here at the headlight, require a specific angle of the knife, ensuring it is angled away from the painted surface in order to get a smooth, precise cut. Again, ensuring the blade does not come in contact with the paint. I can't emphasize more the importance of a sharp knife at all times, so you will need to keep extra blades as you will be changing them frequently. To finish the panels of this install, we roll the excess material around the edges and heat the material in. This small amount of heat will promote adhesion and make the material more pliable for the transition. If you are working around gas tank areas or flammable areas, we recommend you make absolutely sure you are not running any risk of fire or explosions. So if in doubt, do not use a heat source in any of those areas. Let's take a moment to review one of the more complex areas of install. It's a compound curve. This will require the installer to conform the material without distorting the image of the graphic. Here we have the hood graphic that continues over the bumper of the Porsche. The material is worked to a certain point. Note how even tension is applied to the entire graphic as the installer squeegees the material down to the point that heat will be required to soften the material. The installers continue gradually conforming the graphic to the bottom of the bumper surface. Notice the heat is applied horizontally over a large area all the way across the graphic to stretch the entire surface at the same time. Now, do not expect to do the entire bumper all in one move. Work it a little bit at a time, continuing to apply just enough tension to help the graphic conform. You'll know how to gauge what is just enough tension. That is the moment when the edges do not wrinkle as you lay the material in place. Now, do not overheat the graphic. You may need to repeat these steps over and over again to get the material to lay down correctly. Apply the described technique through to the bottom of the area to be covered. Cut away the excess material and roll around the final edge. Another material that you'll be using with vehicle wraps is perforated vinyl. Note the ability to see through the media, so the people in the car can see out, but we can't see in. This material is quite easy to install. As you can see, the installer is applying a slightly oversized section of material for the window. Robbie here pins the graphic and gives it a quick swipe with his squeegee at the top. Then squeegees the center out, working his way around the perimeter, ensuring he has worked the material into the corners. Finally, he trims the excess material away with a short blade. Note the angle of the blade. Be sure to check with local DMV laws for windows that can have this type of an application. Okay, there it is, the Porsche's basic graphic application. Now it's time to do an overall inspection of the entire graphic, making sure all is down, paying special attention to those nooks, crannies, edges, and convex areas. Now that the vinyl is applied, it will start its curing process, approximately 72 hours.
That Porsche turned out incredible. I love it. But you guys also do a lot of work on tractor trailers as well. How do you pull something like that off?
Well, first of all, you got to have one of these.
And what's that?
And that's an installer's map. If you don't have an install map, you don't know where to begin and you don't know where to end. By having this type of a legend, this is what will get you through the road of the wrap.